Welcome, everybody, to the Minority Serving Cyber Infrastructure Consortium, Bridging the Digital Divide. I am Joey Brand. I'm the Associate Vice President for Information Technology at Claflin University in Orangeburg, South Carolina, which happens to be an HBCU. I want you to know that I drew the short straw here, so I get to be the MC. So you get to put it with me, and this is really the first time kind of being an MC, so we're kind of going to have some fun with this. One of the things that we want you to know is that it was formed in 2018. There's some history there about our organization. We're sponsored by Internet2 and through NSF. I'm going to go through some slides that way. I'm going to introduce the panel, and then we're going to have some fun with some questions after I go through a few more slides. I'm going to give you some background. And we're just going to have fun here, okay? The lights are kind of bright here. I was not planning on that. So here we go. One thing I want to point out, if you're looking for MSCC that we did not put on a slide, which I noticed this morning that we need to do, is when you're looking for us online, we're ms-cc.org. So we actually, one of our people met the company that actually has the MSCC, and it's a company, so if you get it wrong, you forgot the dash, so I want to point that out. So we are guided, today we're guided by, I keep looking up there, so I'm not used to confidence monitor. One of the things that we have today is we have a leadership board, and on this board, the people that are highlighted here in the bright, in the bold, they are on our board of trust, or our current board, leadership board. I'm stumbling a little bit here because I'm a little bit nervous, but we'll get through this. One thing that I can tell you is we've been meeting together for several years, since 2018, almost every week. And these people here are all volunteers. Every single one of them have an independent job, but they have a belief in minority-serving institutions and this organization. And my hat goes off to them for giving their time and effort to this organization. Now what we're going to do is I'm going to let them introduce themselves, the panel, to themselves, and they're going to tell you a little bit about their institution, because really what we want you to know is this panel represents a pretty broad spectrum of people, okay? And we're going to start with Dr. Deborah Dent and just go right across. And they're going to tell you something about the institution so you get some kind of context as to how they work and what they're doing. Go ahead, Deborah.
Okay. Good morning, everybody. Okay, we're in the South. Now you have to say it with a Southern drawl. Good morning, everybody.
Good morning, everybody.
Okay, you have it. It's exciting. As you can see, we're excited about being here today. And first thing, you know, you kind of out of order here, because look at the order. I wasn't supposed to go first.
We're having fun here.
Okay.
We're going for it, okay, so let's just go.
Okay, and I already used up 30 seconds of my 4 minutes. Okay.
Go for it.
Okay, I am Deborah Dent. I am the CIO at Jackson State University. Now, Jackson State University is an HBCU located in the heart of Jackson, Mississippi, and we are Mississippi's only designated urban university. We're also an R2 research university, and we've been a member of Internet2 for some years, since 1998, 99, sometime like that. I came to Jackson State after I retired from the federal government, and I'm not going to tell you how old I was or how long I worked there, because then you'll do the calculations and you'll find out that I am over 25. So,
just a little bit.
Okay, but I was there for 37 years, and I was with a research institution, research lab for the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers. And so when I arrived at Jackson State, I came there used to one set of capabilities, and we found that there was another. It was lacking in a lot of capabilities. And around the same time that I showed up on the scene, Dr. Richard Alo, we both came together. And so we said, okay, we knew that we needed to do something and we wanted to work together. But I am, as the CIO, over the enterprise support, and he wanted us to enhance our research report capabilities. And we met with, do y'all all know Larry Smarr? Well, Larry Smarr came to visit us, and he said with the decline in state funding, it was imperative that we increase our research capabilities. So in comes Jim Bottom, okay, and Jill Gilmore. I always say her name wrong. And Bobby Clark from Clemson with an Empower grant. And so that's when we started working with them, and we learned, we got the capabilities of growing our capabilities. And I don't want to get too much into your speech, okay? In fact, I might be doing it on purpose, just because you made me go out of order, right? Okay.
Getting even.
So what we're doing is we do know that we have, I've been trying to get my staff to the enterprise staff to do dual roles, wear double hats. I want them to do the enterprise, and I want them to do the research. With just a staff of like 2 or 3 people in that area, you know, that's not possible unless they work maybe like 16 hours a day. And they won't do it. I've been trying to get them to do it, but they just won't do it. So we're just excited about what's going on here, and I'll answer more questions later before I get into, because you don't see him, but he's giving me the eye right now. So I will answer more questions later. Thank you.
Al.
Good morning. My name's Al Anderson. I'm the Chief Information Officer for Salish Kootenai College. Salish Kootenai College is a tribal college located on the Flathead Indian Reservation in northwest Montana. In terms of tribal colleges, we're a medium-sized tribal college. Our enrollment's been running about 700 or so. In our heyday, back in probably the early 2000s, we were up over 1,100 students. COVID kind of hurt us that way too. We are a tribal college. We are chartered by the Confederated Salish and Kootenai Tribe, so we're a tribal entity. We fall under that kind of legal framework. We have programs all the way from workforce certifications through associate degrees in a bunch of different areas, bachelor's degrees, and within the last couple of years, we've started some master programs, natural resources, education, and I'm probably forgetting, I think there's a new one that's on the table right now of life sciences. So those are kind of our science drivers for getting into some CI infrastructure improvement there. So with my engagement, I mean, first off, I've been at SKC for 30 years. This is actually my 30th year. Get to celebrate that in here a couple weeks. I started out as a network administrator at SKC and kind of worked my way up there until Dr. Joe McDonald decided that, I could provide more of a leadership role. And during that time, I kind of shared this yesterday at a panel, but I think it's important for the context, and this is the truth at a lot of tribal colleges, is that IT services is looked at kind of, in some places, in some TCUs today even, as more of like a pretty low-level service, and they're not necessarily sitting at the table at a strategic level. And I have to give credit to our last president, Robert DePoe, who really basically said IT needs to be sitting at the president's table and in those meetings at that strategic level. That's the only way we're going to move things forward. And Dr. Sandra Bohem, our president, who's here right now, she carried that forward even more, and I'll talk a little bit more tonight about that. How I got involved specifically with MSCC is that, so there's a consortium group of tribal colleges called the American Indian Higher Ed Consortium, and we have a community of practice in there for all the CIOs and IT directors that meet. Right now we meet about once a month. For a while we were meeting almost weekly. And AHEC does a number of different initiatives to help tribal colleges all over the map, and they've done a lot of work lately with IT kind of stuff. And one of the things is they engaged with Jim Bottom, who was working as a consultant for them. And then last year, Jim decided he needed to pass the baton on, and they basically contacted me and said, hey, do you want to join this MSCC thing? So I'm the fresh kid on the block here with these folks. And I was encouraged by Dr. Boham to engage, and I jumped in with both feet. So here I am, bright-eyed, bushy-tailed, and ready to go.
Urban.
Good morning. I guess I could be marked as the outlier. Part about me is that I am the Vice Provost for Decision Science and Visualization at the University of Maryland Eastern Shore. In that capacity, I manage the institutional research area, and we have expanded it to look toward dealing with more data, bigger data, and helping make large decisions based upon the data that we've analyzed. Another hat that I wear is I'm also assistant professor in the Department of Computer Science, which by some slim chance I received an email about a minority-serving cyber infrastructure consortium that was having an event. They were coming together and they were talking about minority institutions and the infrastructure towards research. In that I am an assistant professor, tenure track, I need research, publish or perish, remember? So I said, okay, well, I'll join in. My chairman said, hey, it's about IT. Well, one benefit for me is that my background is in mathematics and in networking. I also served as a network engineer at Intel in California before I transitioned to academia. And as such, I was acquainted and able to speak with the CIOs and the directors of IT without missing a beat and still be on the research side. So that allowed me to come and sit there in a room of about, I forgot how many people were there at the first meeting.
About 20.
Yeah. And I'm the lone non-CIO director of IT person in the room. But I understand faculty, I understand research. So from my perspective, I bring that to the table to address IT. We used to have the saying that IT would build it, and they would basically do if we build it, they will come. And on the research side, we were not really communicating well with IT. And part of it was that IT spoke one language, researchers spoke a different. I sit in the middle between both worlds. So we started having additional conversations. And as such, that's how I was involved with MSCC. And the University of Maryland was able to benefit from my presence associated with it, and that I was able to reach out and meet other people like Dr. Dent, like Mr. Clark, and everyone else that were there that was in that initial meeting to understand what the growth was. One added bonus for me is a plus is that I'm from Louisiana. I started off as a kid whose father worked at an HBCU, Southern University in Baton Rouge. So I saw the HBCU world from second day of second grade all the way through me receiving a master's degree from Southern. I know that world. I've worked with it in other states, at other institutions. So that's a world that I know and I understand. I also went to a PWI, predominantly white institution, which was LSU. And I know that world as well. And I saw the stark difference on policies, procedures, resources, and availabilities with communications, circles, meetings, conversations that were being had that some were not present to even provide a voice to. And MSCC was trying to bridge that gap. So when I attended the first meeting and understood what the goal was, I was basically all in. And during my tenure there, and when my president found out that, okay, you're in this world, I was vice provost now, I did a pause on the faculty side. I'd been over IR for over a decade, and we had a position that opened up. After a year or so, CIO stepped down. I received a tap on the shoulder saying, hey, you buddy with all these CIOs, so that probably birds of a feather, right? So for a little while, I served as both vice provost of decision science and CIO. And I can say I tip my hat to the CIOs because that is a daunting task. And after a while, I did both for about 9 months and then said, hey, you know what? I'm big, but I can't handle 2 seats. So in this case, I need to let you know you need to start getting ready to hire. So we're in the process now of hiring our CIO that I will be bringing on board with MSCC. But having that conversation and having those individuals to have those talks, to be able to understand that there are certain conversations, certain meetings we need to at least have a voice in, because how some institutions operate, that's not how all operate. And being a public HBCU that's ranked 6th amongst all HBCUs, yes, that was a dig. My public HBCUs by U.S. News and World Report, and yes, we are in a Carnegie level Research 2 institution, aiming for R1, working on that right now.
Are you looking at
And as well, but that's our institution. We have approximately 2,500 students, and at about 2015, we were about at 4,500 students. COVID did a number for us as well. We're seeing the change, and we're progressing slowly. But we are definitely going to be on the mark, because we have to beat Jackson State.
Thank you, Urban. Before I go to my last individual, Bobby, introduce him, I know you're all wondering, this is about minority serving institutions. Why is Clemson on the board? So Bobby, can you explain Clemson's role and your role in MSCC?
My name's Bobby Clark, and I'm from Clemson University. Before I get into that part of it, my background is that I grew up on two HBCUs campuses, actually Claflin and South Carolina State in Orangeburg, South Carolina. So that world was very familiar. You said you started in second grade. I started in kindergarten. But the whole world for me is that those two institutions made me the person I am. They were they formed me in the way I am today. Clemson added a little flavor at the end of it. Why is Clemson involved? I'll tell you why Clemson is. 2 reasons. It's Jim Bottom and Jill Gimmel and what they had done. I stand proudly on their shoulders and what they've done with previous grants. And if you ever look at our history, you'll see that we didn't just come out, as the previous keynote speaker said yesterday, it doesn't happen in a vacuum. You do things and then they come forth out of other projects. And we had a project at Clemson where we tried to figure out, well, what is it we can do to help minority serving institutions achieve the kind of grant success that we weren't seeing them to achieve in the past. And so Jim is in the audience right now, and I tip my hat to you, Jim, because I think you did a wonderful job bringing those 6 universities that initially started to what we can do to help them succeed. And what's great about that is that all 6 of them succeeded. And of course, that got us noticed, and then we had the conversation in Atlanta that really led to MSCC's creation. So I'm here representing Clemson's firm support and obligation to see this organization grow. And as I talk to other people at BWIs, I believe we as research institutions have to take on that obligation for all the underserved populations in our areas to help them do the same thing, because we have achieved, I think, a great success, and I'm hoping to see us do even more.
Thank you, Bobby. As you can tell, we're a tight-knit group and meeting together. We pick on each other. We don't let anybody get by with anything, and we always in competition. So that's always fun. Okay, so we're going to go to the next slide. Okay, we have a vision. We're not just a fly-by-night organized organization. We actually have a vision. And in that vision, we're talking about the development we're concentrating on advanced cyber infrastructure development, okay? We're also talking about, excuse me, we're also talking about, and my slide changed, so I gotta find it here. We're also talking about professional development and capacity building, okay? So those are the things that we're most focused on right now. As you may know, most minority institutions don't have a lot of this infrastructure. Some of them do, some of us do. You have a couple of R2s. Mine didn't have it. Al's didn't have it at the time. And we're focused on getting these 2 things going. So this is our big vision. We want to produce really engineers and get the whole minority serving infrastructure embedded into the universities, okay, in our curriculum and so forth. All right. We also have some guiding principles as well. Obviously, there's inclusions, innovation, stakeholder value. Stakeholder value is the big thing. We're talking all the stakeholders. We're not talking about just the student. We're not talking about just a faculty member. We're not talking about just some other foundation or funding opportunity. We also have purposes. I'm not going to read all those to you. You can read them yourself, but they're all self-explanatory. All right, this presentation, this entire group, our presence here, us meeting, working with Internet 2 would not be possible without NSF, us acknowledging NSF and its funding opportunities that are here on the board. And so we just want to say a thank you, and in our case, to Kevin Thompson, who's been our program manager in leading us and believing in us. He actually came to my institution at Claflin University when we had a workshop a few weeks ago. So they're fully committed into this, and we really appreciate what they have going on. All right, now we're going to get to the panel. And we're going to throw some discussions out there, but I'm going to throw one question at them before I get started here, which I told them about, but I didn't put it down on my sheet of paper as one possible one. And it's a very common problem that we have, so we want to kind of level set this out in case you're wondering, how do I work with these guys? What do I do? That sort of thing. So to the panel, whoever wants to answer it, or you can all answer it if you want to, put your individual pieces into it, is this. How do you want other institutions, other entities to approach you, and what do you want out of that? What are you expecting when they come to you to approach you to do something or partner with you or be on a grant or whatever it is they're doing? It's kind of a wide open question, but I want to try to level set that question. Who wants to go first?
Well, let me take a little bit of this. I'm going to give them a little time to get their answers ready. I think the idea about MSCC is we're a trusted community. We want to build trust. We want to build community power because we believe that's where you empower the ways that we will impact institutions and solve the problems that we're all facing. So the very first thing I think that we have to talk about is how we continue that trusted community. And that means being transparent. That means being open. That means letting people know what our goals are and how we achieve them. And frankly, that means listening to the problems that our institutions are having and making sure that we're addressing their needs and not what we think their needs are. And I know we all have talked about that in the past, and so anyone who comes toward MSCC needs to share that same attitude.
Thank you.
So for us, you know, it's super important to have a relationship, a true relationship that gets developed. It's not just drop in, want to sell us something. The world's full of that kind of stuff. What we need is to build a relationship, a partnership. That's what we're looking for, that we can trust each other, what our motives are, what our goals are. If it's simply to sell me stuff, I get enough email selling me stuff. I don't need that. I need partners to help me build these infrastructures, provide the resources for these educators and researchers and the students. That's what I need, and I need clear communications. And in terms of, you know, contacting me, the best thing I think for MSCC is start talking with us, because one of our goals is we want to kind of pre-vet organizations before, and we could say this is trusted. Have a conversation now with these. We think that they have the right goals and objectives for all of our members. So,
Thank you. Anybody else?
Okay. There's one thing that we always say is that we're a group, we're a consortium, but we're all different. And so at our last Internet 2 meeting that we had, was it back in the fall when we met, we did a quick talk about the MSCC, and as a result of that, we were approached by an R1 institution. I was. And I like the way they approached us, is that they came in and they says, okay, let's start having conversations. So they initiated the conversation. I don't know if he's in the room now, but I'll call out his name. It's Matt Rowley. Okay, so he took an interest and he started this communications, and it was, I want my people to meet your people. It wasn't the kind of let's talk and we may have something and we just may help you out. It was, we want to pull you in, we want to partner with you, and that's what we want. We want to be partners, not just a check mark, but we want to be true partners. And so that is the best way, is to look at our capabilities, and which he did. When they showed up, he could tell me more about my institution than I could tell. So I said, oh, he really did do his research. So, but we want to be partners, and I emphasize that we want to be partners with other research efforts, and then as Al said, you know that's what his name says, AI. He slipped in on us. He's not real. Okay. As Al said, that we're, for industries or vendors or whatever, we want them to come to us the right way, right? So I agree with him on. So you can't trust some AI, okay? Okay.
I don't have much more to add than we are welcome, we're open, we are willing to work with pretty much anyone, and we're asking. You know, there are things that we're doing. Another phrase that we have is, we're stronger together than we are apart. So the introduction of new partners, new relationships, and what they said, you know, we don't want to end up with a customer-based relationship like you're at Walmart. We're more along the lines of a client-based relationship, so when you're in trouble, lawyers have clients. You know, this is where you come when you want to have a long-standing relationship. And the goal for us is multifold, as Joey started from the very beginning. The key is the biggest stakeholders that we're looking to address are our students. We are trying to provide an environment where our students can become productive citizens. How that forms itself, no one can really say, but what we're saying is we want to provide the environment where they can grow, where they can dream and produce and make the next greatest, next best something. But we don't want, because they went to an HBCU, for them to be stifled. We want them to have those opportunities. And if you can come with us and help us make something better together, then we definitely want to hear from you.
Thank you. I'm going to make one comment, and then we're going to turn it over to the audience and take questions from the audience. So if you got a question, please bring it forward. But one thing that did not come up that I want to make sure that we emphasize is that Minority Serving Infrastructure Consortium doesn't mean you come to just us and you got to deal with all these, in my case, HBCUs, but all these minorities institutions, right? You can say, hey, I have a passion for this group or this state or these 4 people, these 4 institutions. You don't have to come to us and say, you're not dealing with just the entity and we'll deal with everything else. You can target whoever you want to. That's what we've all agreed to when we got started. We want our students to be available to you, and we want to produce a better student, better faculty, and better facilities, right? Because that's the order that it goes if you're going to attract them all. We have the same difficulties, the same problems that you all have. If you're a larger institution, you have a set of problems. We have exactly the same problems, only on a smaller scale, okay? Are there any questions at this point from the audience? If not, I have a couple of more questions.
Don't be scared.
Come on up. I had it here.
Don't let the teacher in me come out. I'll give pop quiz in a moment.
Pop quiz.
There's a question.
Question on your left.
Question.
There's a microphone on your left.
Yeah, you have to come to the microphones too, by the way. I'm sorry. I forgot to mention that.
There too.
Is it still morning? It's still morning.
Still morning.
Good morning. My name is Mount Allen, and I'm wearing 2 hats at this meeting. I am a graduate student for the California State University, and I'm also a director of operations for what's known as the San Francisco Jazz Organization.
Okay.
And we have a 10 gig pipe coming through our institution as a result of our relationship with Scenic. And so I've had the pleasure of, maybe over the last 10 years, working very closely with the Internet 2 team as far as collaborations on a musical level. And, you know, my conversation with Scenic was, if you really want to test out the latency of your network, then place jazz musicians in different places and see how it comes out. And so on that basis, we've been working with a lot of the R1s throughout the country, and actually throughout the globe in terms of collaborations on this level. So I'm really excited because I've been an advocate of the engagement of HBCUs or MSIs in terms of network participation for a very, very long time. So it's exciting to see all the money that's starting to flow through from the NSF in terms of supporting infrastructure for these organizations. And I would just mention a couple things that as the new players on the block, there's like this, I say, there's this learning curve of what the opportunity of research education networks are, and they tend to deal with things that have STEM, right? That's like the big focus. But the fact of the matter is, the arts are a huge part of every education, starting from kindergarten up through graduate school. And that, quite frankly, although I'm an advocate of STEM, I'm not an advocate of STEAM because I feel the arts can stand on their own. So in that regard, what I'm putting out there is, since the MSIs are coming aboard the network now, there's a learning curve about this, and I'd like to help short-circuit that learning curve by promoting that the MSIs start engaging on conversations larger than STEM. And that they do that now because the PWIs have integrated that into their conversations, and there's no reason for us to have to wait 20 years to bring into the conversation things that are of value to different cultures. Because, the NSF, part of what they do, I've read some of the grants, and they say they want to make an impact in the communities as well. So it does fit in with what the intention is, and I'm saying art can play a huge role in that. And as a cheap plug, SF Jazz is looking for new collaborators. Okay.
Thank you.
Can I speak to that a little
Yes,
bit?
go ahead.
So, and now you may be thinking the same thing. We usually have that thoughts together. So a lot of the solutions that we have, Internet 2 was formed by research institutions to solve the problems that they have. But it doesn't always mean that those steps that we do to take and solve the research problems don't help other things. As a matter of fact, we believe that there is an inherent benefit to doing these things to improve your learning environment. And it's exactly what he's talking about. It doesn't have to be a STEM problem we're solving. Stronger networks, faster, more capable networks with the right kind of support and security mean that we can do more things. And those more things can be the jazz ensemble that we may come up with, and the collaboration that could be possible there, and it could be a lot of other things. And I'm gonna throw it at Hal because I bet he's thinking the same thing.
Yeah, so for tribal colleges especially, and not exclusively, but especially, part of our mission is cultural perpetuation and language perpetuation. And as we move forward with technology and stuff, our faculty, they recognize and they use technology, but they're not using it to the extent that it could be to enhance that. So right from the get-go, when because we're pretty new, we're one of the POCG group colleges, we're going to make sure those people are in that conversation to move forward, because they're an important piece. Just like Mount's saying, they're an incredibly important piece, and they will benefit, and our students will benefit, and our tribes will benefit from building this infrastructure out. In addition to that, I just wanted to share a little bit. I think, we tend, when we use the word research, I think we all conjure up certain things in our mind. And I want to redefine it a little bit. I think research really, especially for colleges, starts when a freshman walks through those doors. They're curious. They want to explore stuff. It starts out as a personal thing that they have, that they're going to figure out not only what they want and where they're going, but the world around them. You don't just graduate and then start your graduate studies and now it doesn't work like that. We know that. We have to encourage that. So in terms of what we say education and research, what we're really saying is we want these young people, the people that are upstairs from us right now, doing stuff, we want them exploring, asking, pushing, and we need to use our infrastructure to encourage that and enable that. So, yeah, I'm just echoing what you're saying there, Mount. It's important, broader, beyond STEM.
And I have one thing. We're also part of the PLCG, and we're, in fact,
Yeah, tell them what that is.
What's the POC?
oh, I'm sorry. Okay, we've been using a term that, an acronym, but that's because we're IT people. That's what we do, right? Okay, so it's a proof of concept grant, and Joey showed you that we had 2 NSF grants, and one of them has a part of it is proof of concept, and so some of the participants, we have multiple participants that were awarded these proof of concept grants, and it's going to involve us where we can, we put in proposals, and we're going to get assistance from Internet 2 and the Tiger team that will come in and provide different types of capabilities that we said earlier that we're lacking. We don't have it. We don't have the capacity to do it. So, but we're going to build that capacity through this particular grant. So in preparation for it, we've been talking with Lauren, and we're getting our teams together, and we did not just address and invite STEM faculty. We invited across the board, and we have our liberal arts teams, and we're expecting them to come on board. And so I also, as the CIO, I have to provide support across the campus, and we provide support to our music department. We are the home of, I gotta get him back, the sonic boom of the South. We're known for the sonic boom of the South. We can beat what are y'all, some kind of jukebox any day of the year, right? Okay. And so
Human jukebox.
and we're supporting the music department already in other areas, but when you're talking, that lets me know that I need to invite them, because we got to get them out there before other people start thinking about this type of research also. But we are looking at more than just STEM. We are looking across the board, other areas, health areas and everything. Okay.
I'm glad she said that, because University of Maryland Eastern Shore, we actually have a pharmacy program, and that is one of the things that we're doing to develop our research. They have high-tech devices where we're looking at doing simulations, drug analysis, and when you said the definition of research, the teacher in me kicked in, and I guess the only thing that came to mind when you said the definition of research was, and forgive me if I stray a little bit, but an intense investigation into a subject matter. It does not mean I'm looking to determine how the speed of light in fiber, how fast a packet travels across fiber. I'm not always going to be looking at how to develop a better protocol for fast TCP. It could simply be, I need this movie to stream in a manner such that there is no latency, well, low latency and high throughput. What does that mean to my mom? That means that you don't see any funny pixels. It means that it doesn't stop the buffer. It means that you're looking at your laptop like you're looking at your television set that we've all watched Young and the Restless on, with no interruption. That is what it means. So when we start talking about music, and I admit I'm a big music fan, and I'm from Louisiana, come on, jazz is in my blood. That pristine sound, that research into one level of the subject matter or another, we're open for. We're doing research with criminal justice right now. That's research. That's not, it falls within the social sciences, but it's outside of a STEM discipline. So all of our work is not only to develop the next cognitive radio, software-defined radio, the next wireless 802.11. No. We're trying to make the world a better place, an environment that our students could stream their instructors' videos, which they do, and I had my students laying in the bed during COVID with the cameras on, head on a pillow, attending class with a bonnet too. Yeah, I didn't get the bonnet thing either, but they were there. This is the environment we're trying to build, we're trying to establish, we're trying to make it so that, yeah, if you want to attend class, laying in the pillow, bonnet on your head, silk bonnet, I learned it was silk, can't mess up the hair, and move forward, and you're still able to do it, then that's exactly what we're trying to do. So that whole concept, that laughing concept of we're trying to go to the Jetsons, we're trying to go beyond the Jetsons.
You know, and it's funny, but the story of cyber infrastructure is about a struggle about telling people that it's more than the broadband that we have in the ground.
Right.
It's about support, it's about humanware, it's about figuring out how to be cross-disciplinary with these kinds of research projects. It's not just STEM, it's everything else around it. And the best projects are the ones that deal with all those concepts. And so that's the message that CI gives us, and it's the message we're trying to project with this organization, is that you have to be broader than that.
So let's take that a little bit further. Today's culture, current culture, is all about broadband. Broadband, 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 right? Everybody's talking about that. So how do we go about talking more about cyber infrastructure instead of broadband?
Well, it's the same thing. We want to make sure people understand that wire in the ground doesn't change the world. People change the world. Community changes the world. And those other things empower it. And we all have examples where where the broadband changes, and that changes things a little bit, but you have to add people to that solution to change it a lot.
Okay.
And that can make the kind of transformation that we see in organizations. And I think it's the key that Jill and Jim were trying to tell us, is that you have to put the support and you have to put the community into the solution you have.
Okay. Anybody want anything else?
Yeah, we have to educate our faculty, our staff, everybody. Oh.
Sorry.
Oh, he told me to stop. Okay. You see how they treat me? I'm the only female up here, and they're just abusing me. He did hit me under the table. Well, okay. We have to educate everybody on what CI is, because everybody thinks about it that it's only broadband. When I say CI, they immediately think it's just equipment, and they do not understand. So as part of this whole initiative is to educate everybody so that they really will understand the true meaning of CI, that they know that it's the people, the capacity,
Right.
it's the data, it's the analytics behind it. And so that when you talk to somebody about it, and I did last week, I talked to one of our health scientists, and he's doing data analytics, and I said, well, that falls in the CI. So now he can't wait for Lauren to get to Jackson State's campus because there's so much that he wants to do. But we gotta get past that everybody thinks it's just broadband. We gotta educate everybody to let them know what CI is.
Right. Great. Let's move one more further with you, Deborah. That is, how do you advance workforce development? How are we attempting to advance workforce development? What needs to be done there? And it doesn't have to be just you, others can chime in.
Okay, because you were whispering in my ear again, okay.
I'll give Deborah a minute. I'll chime in on it.
Okay.
One of the ways we look at workforce development, well, it's twofold. Looking at workforce development, from my standpoint, in one direction, in that we train our students by allowing them to touch tangible devices, to prepare them so that when you receive a bachelor's degree, not only have you received the theoretical knowledge on how these things work, you have a little practical knowledge on what they do, how they behave. You understand, and you have that solid foundation, so that when you leave this institution, or whatever institution, you're actually able to go forward and perform. Community colleges are designed more for that immediate turn turn a dial microwave type of environment. Not anything against a microwave, but that's what they produce because they're more hands-on and they don't, the theoretical concepts are not as broad. They only have 2 years. For our environment, we're working in tandem with that type of scenario. We also, for workforce development, one of the things I brought up in the previous conversation was that we're looking to provide students training in not just what exists today, but to go in the direction of research towards tomorrow. We already understand that with the IT right now, that there's so many positions that are vacant. It's so difficult to bring on individuals in IT, and when you bring them on, you train them, you're probably not gonna be able to afford the person you just created, and then they're gone. And now you have to go through, repeat this cycle over and over again. One of the things that we're looking at, if the current environment it has a deficit, who's doing the research? How many areas are actually doing research and development in the next generation of IT, the next generation of cyber, the next toward that? So you have twofold to deal with, what's going on today and what's going on tomorrow. And for me on the academic side, I kind of straddle between dealing with both, preparing my students for today so that those that want to go into the workforce today, they can. Those that want to go into doing IT-based research or computer networking-based research, we're preparing you so that you can start doing that research to create the next best thing, the next in the networking world. And then you can start creating your own company and building along those lines. But that's what we're doing from the academic side regarding workforce development and additional training. Okay, so I gave you a couple of seconds. You're welcome.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Okay, and I was on also on a committee with NSF, and this is a very big topic with NSF is workforce development, CI workforce development. So we need to join in with defining what the problems are with CI workforce development. And initially I came up with a quick solution is that we all find Dana. Is Dana in the room? Well, there's Dana. And she is, to me, is Miss CI. And if you listen to her background and her story, she pretty much got all of her talent from on-the-job training. So it's how do we define and how do we so that there's like a CI discipline, just like there's a computer science discipline, there's a network discipline, but CI discipline is across the board. So we all have to come together and really help define that. And then we are going to, in order for it to succeed, we have to train our faculty. We have to get our faculty, we got to train Urban, that's going to be a challenge, right? to be able to, if we got to train him or other faculty, and so that they can train their students. We also have to find a way to do some formal training and provide it for our current employees so that they can get properly trained. They can come to conferences like this for that Internet 2 provides. There are other platforms that they can go to, like they just had a 4NRP conference. There's a lot of things out there that we have to get exposed to, right? So it's exposure is important, but we got to get the trainers trained first, and then we can train the trainees.
Okay.
So I would be very remiss if I don't mention the fact that MSCC has been working on a CI 101 kind of training that's available on our website today. We've done a couple of sessions already. I know there are people out here who have taken some of those sessions, and that's a way to get started. And honestly, we need to make people aware that this kind of opportunity exists. Most people like us are looking for these kinds of staff opportunities for our people, and finding them has not been all that easy. So making people aware that we have it out there and taking just a few steps to learn about what this is can brighten their future and make it easier for all of us as institutions.
Another reality for smaller institutions is we're probably never going to have high-level people working for us. We just can't staff those kind of levels. So something that we're all kind of exploring and how we actually pull it off is shared resources in the sense of people being shared. How can we do that? Especially, like I said, the smaller institutions don't even need necessarily a full-time CI engineer or whatever, but we need access to that expertise. And you know, in some regards, you know, like both Joey and I, we're CIOs, but we actually do technical work still. Quite literally, maybe have to go back and log into a router or fix it because we're back up to our network people. So the bigger group has to look at how do we develop that in a sustainable fashion. So it's years down the road we can rely on that. And it's part of that community building. It's an important part of that to be able to reach out and get that extra help that way.
Okay, thank you. Bobby, I got a question for you.
Sure.
You and I have had a discussion, I've had it with other people so I keep turning away from the mic. We've had the discussion with and I've had it with other people in that a lot of while we're pushing cyber infrastructure, we get pushback a lot from people saying research not important, right? Especially administration. How does it, tie to all the other things that we're trying to do? Can you address that a little bit for me?
Well, we kind of spoke to a little bit of it. I know Al just mentioned the fact that, and so did Urban, about research starting at the student level and involving them from the very start. But I think at the end, and I mentioned it before, but I'll happily say it again, the things we're talking about doing can strengthen your learning environments. And your learning environments can improve everybody's view of it and everybody's capability of it. So when you make a CI plan, or where you talk about your network, you strengthen your network, when you improve your staff's understanding of what is needed at your institution, you're strengthening everybody's ability to learn in better ways. And so this is an opportunity for everyone to improve your learning environments. And we want to make sure that we give that message loud and clear. Cyber infrastructure has always had a tinge of research attached to it, and I don't deny that. But I do think that some of these steps make the absolute sense for all the institutions to pay attention to. In this day and age, technology is a way to survive the problems and obstacles of the world, and we want to make sure that we have a way of having that kind of community discussion.
Thank you.
Sure.
Al, how do you think the hackathon inspires our youth to get more involved with cyber infrastructure?
Now, that's a great segue because it's right that same discussion where, I was at the hackathon upstairs for a while sitting there and watching the students just engaged and exploring. And it's that curiosity that gets developed by being challenged with a problem. How do you approach even looking at the problem? And those hackathons give a space for those students and the crew up there from the Texas Supercomputer Center. They're doing a great job of facilitating that and getting the students engaged. And they're slowly leading them down a path to go, here's how you explore this problem. Here's how you use these different tools to apply to the problem and get more information to it. So it's a wonderful effort to engage them involved.
All right, thank you. For the rest, all of you, how do you currently engage your faculty, and what's been your experience doing that, introducing new things, particularly when it's new in your institution?
We're all looking at Urban.
I was looking at Urban too.
Because he's faculty.
Yeah, that's been an interesting development, especially when I served as CIO, and I think a couple of people looked at me like I betrayed them. I went to the dark side, but nonetheless, what has developed at many institutions were that there were silos. IT had its world, faculty had another world, staff had another. They really didn't communicate. The faculty side, they had, like I said before, they had this mindset that this is IT's mindset. IT has the field of dreams mindset. If we build it, they will use it. Faculty side was, they don't even know what we need built. IT's standpoint was that they really didn't communicate with the faculty because, hey, if we make it large enough, fast enough, you'll be good. The same mindset of Apple. Now, I can't speak for all CIOs, I can't speak for all faculty, but that was the impression that I had in several discussions. Both areas were speaking for one another when they really hadn't had that conversation. And that's what we're looking at now, is having that conversation. That's leading to the workshop that we're going to have at UMES, at my institution next month, is to take those silo walls and crash them down. To have IT and researchers in the room at the same time talking. What is it that you're trying to do? And allow us to see if we can help you find a way to accomplish that task. Those conversations, that type of openness with the ability of respecting each other's area, that was rarely done. And oftentimes, certain areas, and I admit the computer science department was notorious because we know as much as the IT department because we created it, and we teach it. So we know what you do. We know how to do it. So us having a conversation with you, trying to, look, just set up what I want you to set up. I know not knowing the entire environment, not knowing how everything is designed, not knowing all the interconnects, would lead you down a very big rat hole. But those conversations didn't happen. So now you're having this openness, and I think COVID was a very stark reality bell that was rung. And now people are we're all paying attention, because what it did was it forced everyone to do a hard reset and say, this is where we are, this is what we need to do, and we have to do this together. And that, I think, was what opened that conversation up. It's where you saw the need of the learning management system, what the network was doing, how IT had to work with faculty, where faculty needed to grow, where certain faculty had to turn on the computer for the very first time in 20 years. Yeah, you had that environment to actually come into fruition. So now I think we're very poised across the entire country to move forward in that respect, where you have the researchers and IT having those conversations, because big data is here. It is not going anywhere. Operating on the infrastructure, with that cyber infrastructure, that's where we have to live. So whether we like it or not, we're in the same boat. We have to row together.
And it's about conversations where you're listening to each other and identifying the real problems. And that's what trusted community does. It doesn't just talk, it listens and reacts to the needs of the stakeholders that we have. And so having real conversations with faculty is the first way you start to identify those kinds of things. And Urban is absolutely right. Once you have the real conversation, then you can see where the problems need to be met. And there are always small steps to take that you can do without much money, without much material, that will relieve some of those issues. And one step leads to another.
Okay. Al, Debbie, you want to add anything?
I'll tell one little secret. Okay. So I usually can get my husband to do things that I want him to do when I'm having a conversation with him, and there's a skill at making him think it's his idea. And then I get buy-in from him, right? So we have to use the same skill. So I'm gonna have to train the guys here, right? That when we're talking to the faculty, we have to talk to them, communicate with them. And when we leave there, we have to have buy-in. And we have to have them at the point that they're excited about the project or whatever it is. And it's their idea, and we're just there to help them. Ladies, if you do that with your husband, you get everything that you ever need done. Okay.
So before she manipulates me more, but I think what you're also trying to say is that there's the opportunity for community, because a lot of the faculty who have identified this, certainly at Clemson, but at a lot of other places, can be brought in to show you what they've done. And as a matter of fact, at Claflin, we had an incredible conversation with faculty members who have bought into this and done amazing things. Right. And faculty showing other faculty what can be done is the greatest message that you can give to them.
Right. Al, I'm going to ask you this question. What are the problems for a small, under-resourced institution? How are you attempting to overcome them?
Well, talking about what we were just talking about, engaging faculty, is a huge problem for us. And it's not that the faculty don't want to be engaged, it's a time issue. I mean, most of our faculty are teaching really full loads. And then, you know, I come breezing in and saying, oh, I got this grant and I'm going to have these people visit and they want to talk to you. And it's like, when am I going to do this? Why is this important to me? So that's a challenge for me and my institution to figure out how to do what we were just talking about. I mean, I got to learn how to do that, make it their idea. Beyond that, I've mentioned it already, is the staffing. We're not going to be able to blow up our budgets to support huge infrastructures, but you said it, we have to engage with this stuff. It does, if we're going to be successful and move ahead, we have to be engaged with it. We have to have the skilled people, even the limited number that we have to engage with it. So our struggle is, how do we get the resources to support what we can sustain and move that forward? That's a huge challenge for us. And the reality is, we got lots of money, but money doesn't solve the people problem in most cases.
Right. Deb, would you like to add anything? You're a little larger institution, but you're still under-resourced. How are you addressing it?
Correct. We are under-resourced, and that's why we're looking at this whole effort, the MSCC consortium, and I heard Bobby saying that last night over and over again. And it takes us back to what we said in the beginning. We can do more together than we can alone. So we can share, it's resource sharing. So it's important that we're able to develop this resource sharing. We've been fortunate that we've been able to partner with Internet2. We've been able to share resources with Internet2. Critical. We would not be where we are now if it was not for that. So for us to move forward, and we already know that there's a capacity challenge. And it's not that, as he said, sometimes it's not even that we can't afford it, is we can't get that talent to even come to our locations. So we have to learn how to share, and we've got to develop a way that we can share those resources. And
You want to add anything, Urban? Or?
No question.
Okay, question. Oh, we had a question. Great.
Hey, what's going on?
How you doing?
I'm doing all right. I'm chilling even. But while breaking microphones. My name is Philip Wallace. I'm with United Negro College Fund. And so I have a question. Okay, take a step back. I'm with United Negro College Fund, Institute for Capacity Building. So we work with HBCUs nationwide to help build capacity. That's my short thing there. That's the relevance. The question that I have, given particularly what you just said, is how do you all maintain this focus, a tight focus, while also, but basically, how do we serve this broad set of needs while maintaining a tight focus? Because we're dealing with a lot of institutions that are under-resourced, and capacity is a big constraint, not necessarily competence, but capacity. But the number of issues that we're trying to address are like what every institution is dealing with, plus all the equity things on top of that. And so there's a temptation to try to basically, to quote Powerpuff Girls, save the world before bedtime, but we have limited resources. So how do we really prioritize, what are the top priorities? How do we, identify those priorities and stick to them in this big field of issues? I don't know if that makes sense. Does it? Okay,
Yeah.
sorry, I'm rambling.
I think, Philip, it's a great question. And you have to maintain your focus on this and realize where you're saving the greater good. There's something, our principle I think we all kind of believe in, is you act on those issues when you identify them, even in small ways. Even the little things help us get to the next steps. And so I think if you take that approach, kind of how do you eat an elephant? Well, one bite at a time. So you make an effort to make sure that what you're doing is helping, that you're listening to people and addressing the real problems that they're having, and you take the small steps you need to take as soon as you can. That's the only way to do it, in my opinion. Certainly we'll get to points where big things need to happen, and we can certainly hope and be willing, that we're all willing to make those kind of big steps. But just start small and do things what you can to help the situations.
We also focus on prioritizing the now, understanding that there are certain things that MSCC is doing now, today, as we speak right now. because that is a fire that we have. Basically, if there was a cyber threat, you address the cyber threat. Well, I need to move the router down a rack. Yeah, you could do that tomorrow. You address the now, and understanding that, yeah, at some point in time you have to make trade-offs. One of the biggest issues that we have is Al's institution is not the only low-resource institution. Having capacity, having infrastructure, you're not the only one. And I like the way you use the term that we really focus on. You said equity. You did not say equality. You said equity, which is a huge difference. The reality is, when you're under-resourced, this didn't happen yesterday. This didn't happen over the last 2 years because of COVID. This is something that has been a problem for quite some time. And call it what it is, that's the reality. There have been several lawsuits against different states that resulted in large checks being written to try and balance. But at the end of the day, I have students in school right now. What are we gonna do for them? I understand about yesterday. We have a problem. We're going to address it. But in open disclosure, my daughter graduates from college next week. What are we doing for the students of today? How are we preparing for them? So we're addressing that and focusing, because that's the now, and providing them an environment. And I know this is Joey's story, but Joey's story hit me from a perspective. He brought up, he had a student who had an opportunity to go great places, but where he wanted to go, they wanted him to know about high-performance computing. He had no experience with it, he wasn't open to it. Joey felt bad. I felt bad because of the fact that, you know what, I have students who don't have that experience. And that could be the one thing that holds them back. So I need to find a way so that my students can have the best opportunity as possible. Treat them like my children, like I think about in regards to my children. I provide you as much as possible. Now you go off in your direction, and that's what we're trying to do. Because the students of today, they need these things. They're not like the ones like when we were in school. They have certain things that are in place in the job market. There are certain expectations. And the one thing that we don't want to have happen is the students of today suffer because we sat back and didn't even try to fix the problems.
I also want to start, and you go ahead.
Okay,
All right.
and then, okay, so we're focusing on today, right? But we also, as an organization, we're being strategic. And so we have planning groups that we are going to be strategic about this. So we are planning for tomorrow. We have to address today, but we have to strategically plan for tomorrow. We're building a bridge. We discovered that there was a gap. So we have to build a bridge. But have you ever noticed when somebody announces that they're going to remodel a road, they're going to build a new bridge? It doesn't happen overnight. You have to wait for them to build that bridge properly. So we're looking at now, what do we need to do to build that bridge so that it will be the foundation, and we want a firm foundation. So we're strategically looking at also how we're going to build that firm foundation.
I think the thing I want to also make sure we do is that this is not just for underserved institutions. The kinds of things we're talking about are not gifts to the underserved. They're the way to make it all better. We all benefit from a more diverse, a more capable workforce that attacks these problems. And we're going to need every last soul to conquer some of the challenges that we're going to see in the future. So this is not just for MSIs. This is for everybody.
Right.
I just wanted to say one thing is, you know, we all recognize that we're on a journey. And we're on a journey that there's going to be people that join right now, and they're going to leave. New people are going to join, but we are working hard to build that foundation so that we can keep that journey moving forward with all the institutions. And that's why we're encouraging everyone to join with us and move this ahead on this journey, because that's the only way forward.
Right, I agree. Thank you. We're almost out of time, and so I want to kind of close this out, but I want to make a couple of comments. First off, you've seen the camaraderie between the individuals here and the commitment. Remember, they have full-time jobs. We're doing all this stuff extra, late hours, Al and I are talking on weekends, evenings, nighttime, stuff like that. I'm talking to Laura, and I've called her at home before. I've talked to Anna before. But one of the things that I want to make an important point about, and one of the things that I have really learned that kind of drives home what we see and what drives us, besides seeing all the stuff that goes on with our students and everything and wanting them to be more and all the stuff that they said, I agree with 100%. But there's two things that I think that I have learned about because I'm not a minority, obviously, but two things I have learned about minorities. One is they know how to get up, okay? They know when they fail because something has happened or they've struggled, they know how to get back up and keep going, okay? We went to an institution that had a whole department of people that were dedicated to counseling people who failed because they were a richer institution, come from a much higher level of people than most of us do. And they know that was so foreign to us. We don't even have anybody that deals with that in our institution. The second thing I want to bring up is our students have grit. They know how to continue. They know how to push forward. They know how to keep at it. And so when you're a researcher or you're looking to partner or you're wondering what you can do with your organization and how you can approach us, come approach us. You see how easily we are approachable. Come see us. So grit and ability to get up and recover and keep moving forward. I want to thank the panel for their time. Thank you for the questions. Thank you for attending. And please search us out and work with us. We'd love to move this thing even further. Thank you.